Hi Alexandre, how are you?
How are you? I'm good.
So, could you please introduce yourself to us?
I'm an architect. My name is Alexandre Zein. I'm coming from Lebanon. And today I'm participating in UIA SEOUL 2017, and I'm really proud to be part of this kind of huge event and that we call Olympics of Architecture.
So, tell me, why did you come here?
Well, actually, every architect's dream is to be to do this exchange between the thousands of numbers of architects that are being part of such an amazing event that has everything going on at the same time. Like you get to see, you have some exhibitions, you have big architects giving lectures, we have keynotes and all that. So it's really important for every architect to visit Seoul because it's an amazing city at first part, and in second part, it's so important for every architect to see and experience this type of exhibition and this type of congress.
So, tell me more about your project.
Yes, project is about.
I heard that you're not a fresh graduate. This project has been.
Yes, it's for three years
for
almost.
3 years.
For
okay.
3 years, but ever since I graduated, this project is still,
still so special.
Yeah. It's still so special, and it's still,
because it's not
still
commercial
with me.
yet.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's not commercial.
Yeah,
It's definitely not. It's actually some kind of solution for a major crisis that actually it's still happening in our country and in the world also. So as we know that the Syrian crisis and the war that happened in 2011, that actually started way before that. So when the real war started in 2011, this population that had to flow throughout these neighbor countries, and one of the neighbor countries is Lebanon. So we faced in Lebanon more than 1 million Syrian refugees.
1 million?
Yes, more than 1 million. And
that's like within a couple of years.
Exactly,
That's a lot.
and it's a very chaotic influx that happened, and we had no control to it.
Okay.
So
how were they living? They were living in refugee
they were
camps
living in really
inside the...
Actually, they were living in really bad conditions ever since the war happened. We had some people died from snow and from the ice. They were at Bekaa. So some families were dying. They were there was this hunger happening, and it was so difficult for them to face this kind of crisis. It's not human. So the UNHCR just intervened and started giving some food, some tents. But it's not enough. It's not an architecture.
So how did you think about the solution to this?
So when I saw this
in your project,
yes, when I saw this crisis happening, and I got inspired and I thought that architecture is not always about the physical shape. It's not always about the Hellenistic, experience of the performance of architecture, but it's more likely a solution of crisis. Architects, only us architects, you can create these solutions for such problems. So I thought I don't want to make these amazing shapes that a computer can make, because I want the soul of this problem to be built. I want to expose and put some kind of empowering on the power of architecture. When you empower the power of architecture, it could be the driving force to solve these kind of problems. So I just started to do my plannings. Actually, I just started to do my research. It was a really tons of research, and it took a really hard work. It's like I just divided them to chapters. We had first chapter is about the problem itself, and then I went to Syrian anthropology study, and then I studied theory of fractals, and they all connected together, and then working on an emergency settlement and seeing some examples of such settlements. So the whole research were all connected together.
So your research included visiting.
Exactly. This was very hard for me because we have these camps that are dangerous actually, and
it's dangerous for Lebanese people.
For Lebanese people and for everyone. Nobody can access these camps.
You accessed them?
Yeah, I had to access them. I got really very frustrated when I just got in. I just
how did you do that, and how did you feel?
I didn't get out of the car. I just passed through the car and just took some picture in a very secret way.
At you.
Yes. I was with my dad, and he was driving through and taking pictures in a very secret way.
I need to ask you something because in Egypt we don't have refugee camps. It's not this idea is not that dominant.
Yeah.
And even like a lot of Syrians who come to Egypt, they live inside like just like Egyptians in apartments, and even if they couldn't like afford, they try as much as they can to live in Egypt because we don't have these camps.
Yeah.
So my question is, are these camps gated, or like it's like a prison, or is it like open to?
Yes.
Like
actually,
like the Palestinian camps. I know that many of the Palestinian camps are actually neighborhoods right now.
yes.
So how is it?
In Lebanon, we had like several Palestinian camps throughout the years that it took place.
Yeah.
So there are ones that are really dangerous, okay, and there are ones that are really friendly. So the ones that are friendly, I accessed. The ones that are friendly at Dubai, actually, there was one is really friendly. And I started doing some interviews and communicating with them.
It's a normal neighborhood.
Yeah, it's very normal. Yes, it's not dangerous. And there are ones that are Walias and the
I need you to define to define dangerous for me. What do you mean by dangerous?
There are like dangerous people in here.
Okay.
Yeah, for example, they are racist. If you know that you're a Christian and and they're gonna start kidnap you.
Yeah, of course.
The fact is the violence thing. This is what we are afraid of from the Syrian refugees, because we saw some really endangered violence from the people that faced really bad conditions in their life, in their childhood. So this is the reason why, and the non-education thing, and socioeconomic problem, and the whole society, the social environment that's living in really bad conditions, the output's going to become violent. The output of these people is going to become violent. That's why we should right now, this is the right time for us to create a solution for a problem that we see grow right now.
So simply, how was your solution?
So simply, I didn't want to recreate camps like you have.
Just show me.
Yes, I will show you.
Anyway, there will be graphics on the video, so people would
yes,
would
exactly.
see,
they're gonna see it.
They're gonna see it.
So I want to avoid recreate these camps. So the fact is, I recreated the same virus.
You were inspired. You were inspired from that.
Yes. So I think that the best idea about these people when they are refugees, usually, they
don't have this compass that directs them to the right place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They are not architects. They are not professionals.
Of course.
That's why they will have to build their house themselves in a way that's not correct.
Yeah.
It's not good for their health. Not good for the infrastructure is not incorrect. Everything is incorrect. So that's why this is the role of an architect, is to give them the built-in bases that they are incapable of building.
Okay. So how did you find the solution in your project?
Okay, so the strategy was to reinvent this same virus, which is the camp, this dangerous camp, by regenerating the same concept. But the only difference is that the reproduced one is guided by an architect. It's encoded, it's programmed, just like any program, any programming system.
Yeah.
You see? So
just like I heard you saying that as if you're clicking on start and Windows pops
exactly.
up. So you're encoding the language of architecture to this thing.
This programming thing becomes architecture that adapts actually to this kind of crisis, this kind of population, this kind of living thing.
How did you do that in here?
Okay, so the strategy is that I built the built-in bases, called the built-in bases, that the refugees are incapable of building, and for them to squat it.
Okay.
And then there's the role for them to build their house, but in condition they have to use biodegradable materials because their presence is not permanent.
Yes,
the auto-construction architecture shall act accordingly. Construction materials shouldn't be sustainable, but biodegradable.
Of course.
So we used honeycomb paper panels, some kind of paper that degrades with time. So they will always have to maintain their house and recycle its materials and rebuild it. So the project is like, we have two types of structures. We have the sustainable structure, which is the dismantled and transformable structure made of zinc, and it contains the built-in bases that has rainwater collector as the shaft
Where-
that
where is
collects
that
water.
here?
Yeah, that
so-
collects water from gravity.
Yeah.
And we have the PVs for electricity.
Okay.
And this whole structure, the settlement, is uplifted from the ground in order to find a place for infrastructure, and also to give this temporary aspect and to protect the shelters from flooding.
Okay.
So they shouldn't be directly connected to the ground.
Because
That's
we
why
have
we
a lot of
uplifted
rain
them.
in Lebanon.
Exactly.
And tell me more about the core thing, the idea of the core that you build and then
Yes.
let the virus
Exactly.
let the encoded language.
Yes, how
work.
this happened.
Yeah.
This has happened. What actually you just put the language, the programmed language, in architectural language.
Where is your program language here?
Okay. So you have
I want to talk more about the architecture itself and then on the urban scale.
exactly.
First on the architecture.
The thing is, if you understand one cell,
Yeah.
which is a core periphery,
Okay.
it's one cell, you're going to be able to understand the whole sophistication, because this is a matrix that I created.
Okay, great.
Because for a precarious population, the theory, you need a theory for the growth and for the shrinking, and you need a matrix.
Yeah.
So when I did a Syrian anthropology study, showed that we have urban centers and we have rural areas. In rural areas we have confederation, and inside of a confederation we have tribe, and then inside of a tribe we have sub-tribe, and then inside of it we have a clan, and then we have the small particulars of the family. So this whole sophistication is based on this one family, which gave me the inspiration to the theory of fractals, because it's similar to it. Fractal is a theory of nature. It's a self-organizing system. This is when you explore the same pattern in different scales. So for the growth and for the shrinking, just like a tree starts with a trunk and then it just grows.
Yeah.
So this is how it's supposed to grow, and this is how it's supposed to shrink.
So you started here by the very minute unit,
Yes.
which is the core,
Exactly.
which you build.
Yes.
And how does the refugees add up to this core? How do you guide
Yes.
them?
Yes.
What
How
do
do
you
you
build
guide-
in order
Okay,
to?
let's make this concrete, because
Yeah.
the talking is just talking.
Exactly,
Okay.
yeah.
So we have these trusses, okay, and these trusses, when we encode it, you just put the right places and the right cones in a way that it can be built like this.
You just assemble things.
Yes, it assemble things, and it cannot be assembled in any other way, and you cannot use any other materials like concrete or masonry. You just use these materials. This is never gonna work. No house is going to be built
Do you know
without these
that
materials.
Le Corbusier had idea very similar to this after the World War. Have you ever heard about something called Maison Domino?
Yes, I've heard of it. Yes.
It was the same thing,
Yes.
building slabs, and
Yes.
people were their only job was to just put the walls as they want.
Yes.
He only the
Yes.
architect just built
Exactly.
slabs with staircases.
Yeah.
And people.
Yeah, talking about that, I just got inspired from the idea that they should really build their own environment, because that's what they do. I just saw a video of Syrian refugees, several ones. They're like saying, I want to be free. I don't want people to guide me. I don't want to be stuck in a fence core.
Yeah.
I just want to be free. I'm going to do my own thing. So this just popped up in my mind that I should give them the freedom to build their own environment. Maybe this one is gonna put a ladder here. Maybe another one is gonna put
course.
I don't know. You're gonna have to some production of agriculture. The other one wants to sell socks. I don't know. So you should give them the freedom to live in an urban way in this self-sufficient settlement that comprises all the built-in bases.
Yeah.
That comprises all the needed functions for them to survive.
So I need to ask you, how did you plan on the urban scale?
Yes,
Like
okay.
How would it work on the urban scale?
Okay.
So we understood the very minute units.
Yes.
How would this work? How the units would work together on the bigger scale?
Yes. First, I told you, if you understand this one cell, you can be able to understand every other
Exactly.
cell. So I took this one cell and I did the stimulation. This is iteration 1, iteration 2, so it's stimulated.
It's a computer.
Yes, it's a computer
computer-based
stimulation using
stimulation.
algorithms. Because fractal systems, they use algorithms.
Yeah.
This is the theory of nature. It's
Yeah,
so
of course.
important. It's so interesting to use a nature theory and adapt it to architecture. If you
course.
include it in architecture, it's going to give really, a specific and specific output.
And a natural feeling too. So yeah, you use these algorithms to produce the urban iteration.
Exactly. So it grew from a family to a confederation. Now this is the city. So you can see here four cells, 4 families, and there's one core. Then here you can see 4 cells inside of 4 cells. And then we have the services that services all. So the serve that is serving, you can see it in every time. You can see it in different scales. And you can see this same thing in different scales.
Okay, I can see here in the perspective shot that they're not repetitive, as I can see here.
Exactly.
They are
exactly.
big and wider
Okay.
and longer.
So one of the part of the encoding that each family, which number of people, they have several types of specific types of modules, which is 1.2 times 1.2.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you take a look here, one person is allowed 6 to 9 modules because he's just living in a small space. You can't give him a big space. So this is how it's encoded. Put the guidelines, and you encode it and you design it, the architecture, the way you encode it in a way that you leave a setback between a shelter and another, and you leave a late agricultural area for them to build their agriculture, to produce agriculture and sell it maybe. So they have their own businesses. They have this autosufficiency place.
So all of this is simulated by the algorithm.
Exactly. So you can see different type of scales. You can see like big families. They're using, for example, 26 modules. They have inside of it, you have partitions, and we have four or 3 beds or whatever. So you can get to see different types of house in the scales and also in the height. So it's programmed like this in a way to give this this wavy shape. So you can give it at the same time, even if it's architecture for poor, it can have some kind of aesthetical value. Once we build the settlement, which is a sustainable material, unlike the biodegradable material, when the crisis is over, the refugees will leave.
Yeah.
And this structure remains. It's transformable. It's
Unused.
programmed to be unused. That's why it can transform to another use in some other place. It depends on what you want. You can just create a big concert hall. You can just create a agricultural city. So what I did here, I just did an agricultural city, and as for the infrastructure left behind, it was used for irrigation. And the PVs generated electricity to Akkar, because there are some villages in Akkar that are, that have no electricity.
This is genius.
Thank you.
That's really good. That's really nice. Tell me, is the cycle considered to be a looped cycle?
Yes,
or?
it's a looped cycle. Just consider that there was another crisis that happened. For example, the tsunami, and the whole like bunch of houses, they were like destroyed. You're gonna have gonna face 10,000 people or thousands of people that are homeless. What are you gonna do with it? You're gonna need this quick architectural intervention that will hold these people under a roof and make them survive. This is the power of architecture. The power of architecture is not just about its shape and its physical form, but it's how it performs and how it changes people's lives. Because architecture can change people's life, not in terms of also in terms of aesthetically thing, and in terms of creating these spaces and make them experience something really amazing. At the same time, if there was a crisis, architecture can play this role of changing people's life and make them live in a better way, in a better human way. Especially if you have these kind of people that are poor and have no capacity to work, or are they, I don't know, there's this unbalanced world.
I'm amazed by your project. And I need you to tell people one last message.
Yes.
A lot of young students are amazed by the Western architecture and by the Western thinking.
Yeah.
Although you attended the lecture yesterday.
Yes.
It's very clear that Patrick's ideas, they are typical first world problems.
Yes.
So what is your last message for students and for students in the third world country, and especially students in the Arab world?
Patrick talked about Zaha Hadid, and he said that she went to different directions. She just got out of this conventional architecture that we all know. She started doing with her sketches, with the abstraction, the suprematism, and she just went doing these curves.
Yeah, of course.
And then they had this technology of computers that be able to create these amazing shapes. But in my opinion, it's really amazing to have this interesting and not boring architecture with these beautiful shapes. But for me, I think architecture is much deeper than this. It depends on maybe the client. It depends on the project. If you are asked to do a museum,
so what would you tell the students?
Yes,
people from the Arab world and people from the third world.
Yes,
I don't like saying the third world, but you understand what I mean.
I tell the students that each project has its own spirit. Each project has its own thinking, has its own strategy, has its own way of solving this problem, this complex problem. So that's why you should be able to able to work the project differently than the other, because each project performs differently than the other. For example, this is a crisis, and this is a solution for a crisis. And sometimes
And
if you're
this is actually the core of architecture.
it's the core of architecture, and if you're asked to make a really modern and futuristic museum, I think that what Patrick does, or what Azhar Hadid Architects does, is pretty much interesting work, and I'm really like big fan of them.
Of course. Yeah.
Yes, so I think that each one of it has its place.
Yeah.
Each project, each context, each story has a place. So each project has a story. That's what I always say. That each project has a story, and you're gonna have to be able to create the project using the story. And there's this process that happens, just like the evolutionary process that gradually, grows in order to reach that final output. And sometimes you design time. Sometimes you get back to the original thing, and you start changing here, and you start changing there. And there is always this changing happening in order to reach this final interesting design and space and architecture that gives people a really amazing experience.
I need to thank you so much